Lily Eng is also a Buddhist teacher. Are you here based in London mostly, or in France? Okay, so she is she actually specializes in the contemplation of the self. So I think this was a beautiful setup by Jan to this topic. And she also oversees the training of Buddhist teachers within the Rigpa Buddhist centers, of which this one is an example. So without further ado, I look forward to your contribution, Lily.
Thank you. So just to continue on with actually Jan's talk, we've built AI that we naturally anthropomorphize, right? Even if we don't want to. And this brings to the foreground various kinds of challenges, but also in every challenge, there's also an opportunity. And here we can really take that opportunity, like Jonathan was saying, to look into the mirror, and we can develop insight and sharpen our wisdom. I hope this is now going to work. Because obviously we're at this Wisdom and AI Symposium, I just thought I would start with AI, even though I don't know very much about AI. Could I just ask everyone to raise their hands if you have ever felt that AI understood you, or you felt that it was being a certain kind of way? Cool. Okay, if you could keep your hands up, then next question is, please keep your hands up if you've ever felt that there was actually a self or a consciousness or an experience in that AI. Oh, okay, interesting, okay. Cool, that's good. Okay, thank you. So when we use AI, we might have this sense that we're talking to someone, or even become emotionally attached, or we might feel seen or understood. But objectively, as Jan was saying, there's no one there, there's no consciousness, there's no experience, and there's definitely no self that's having those experiences. It's just patterns and algorithms and statistical predictions. Yet we might feel that there's a self in this AI. We might feel that it understands and cares about us, that it has intentions. And at the same time, we can know intellectually that there is no self, that it's just codes and patterns. So what if our sense of a self for us as sentient beings, as humans, that we experience is actually similar to that? We feel that there is a solid, tangible, and continuous me, the agent. But when we dig a little deeper, what do we find? Again, it's just patterns, conditioning, thoughts arising based on past experiences, and responses based on our upbringing, our culture, and such. So our relationship with AI can help us to gain insight and see that the appearance of self and the existence of a self are actually two different things. Like, we can project a self on AI, we project a self on ourselves, something that we feel like is me. And the ignorance is not so much in relation to thinking that AI or human beings have a self, but the ignorance is more rooted in the feeling that there is a self, despite somehow knowing that it isn't the case. And one of the foundational Buddhist concepts you might be familiar with is the 3 marks of existence that describe this true nature of ourselves and everything we experience. And these 3 are impermanence, dissatisfaction, and no self. And understanding all phenomena are characterized by these three marks is vital for us to progress along this Buddhist path. And there are many teachings, reflections, and investigations that are supporting us to progress along with this. In this talk, I'm going to focus on the notion of no self, and the purpose is to experience that there is no solid self that has any existence. So the investigations demonstrate that this self cannot be found anywhere. But this is actually also not in conflict with us having an everyday healthy sense of self that we need to have in our everyday lives. But on the other side, we also need to be aware of the danger of holding the other extreme of nihilism or non-existence of self. So these extremes are, we need to be wary of them. So even if we intellectually understand no self, we still feel and act as if there is an agent, a self, right? And it's this gap that the foundational Buddhist teachings are exploring, this feeling of having a self, even when the investigations show us otherwise. So this closing the gap between understanding and feeling there's no self is at the core of meditation practice. And to help close this gap, there is this, Jonathan mentioned them already, those three wisdom tools of hearing, listening, or contemplation, reflection, and meditation. So we need these in order to basically come to realize what we might understand intellectually at first. So at first we need the teachings in order to reflect and then develop that insight into realization. So just to go into this a little bit further, Tsongkhapa said that of the million reasons why we venerate the Buddha as the peerless teacher, there's just one particular reason that can be singled out. And that reason is that the Buddha taught interdependence. And the basic principle here is that all things arise upon dependence on other things. So Buddha had this foundational discovery about cause and effect. And the root cause of this cause and effect, which actually causes our cyclic existence in samsara, is unsatisfactoriness. Or we could say it's our destructive emotions. And our root problem, our primary problem, is thinking that there is a self where there isn't one. And based on thinking that there is a self, we see things through this lens of duality, me and you, and things that I want and things I don't want. So just to try to illustrate this a bit clearer, just going to hold this up. Could you tell me what you see? A phone? Any, okay, phone's good. All right. Then, this one? Orange. And now, what do you see? Jonathan. Okay, great. Excellent. Brilliant. Okay. All right, now we can move on. So, immediately, when we look at something, we start to already immediately form ideas. Like Jan was saying, we first see a particular, but then we bring in all these generalities. So we don't actually see things the way that they actually are, because we're already filling in this picture. And I still remember vividly when I was receiving teachings on this topic, our teacher held up his phone and he said, "What do you see?" And every single answer that came back, it was like, no. And he kind of actually started to get a little bit annoyed with us. It was like he even became, I think, a little bit angry. And basically, the answer he wanted to come back when we held up this phone was, what you're seeing is shape and color. That's what you would be seeing if you're thinking of in that fresh moment before you add in all those concepts and our past experiences. It's just shape and color. So instead of looking at something and immediately seeing it, we don't leave things in that fresh moment. We immediately start to apply what we remember from our past experiences, I mean, unconsciously, right? And concepts that we start to process what we're actually seeing. So straight away, we look at the object and we want to make it into something familiar, into a unit that we recognize and that we can communicate. For instance, this is long, it's plastic, it has a pointed tip. It's a pen, we immediately, and the thing is, if Jonathan says to me, can you pass me the pen? I know what to be able to give to him, right? So we need that. And Songsa Khensa Rinpoche, he said, the problem is we see what is not there, and we don't see what is there. And he said, this is like the mother of all emotions. Hope, fear, expectation all come from this. So we look at something, and based on our past experiences, we label it. So, for instance, with this orange, we know it's not a mango, right? It's not a banana. And so we label it, and if we like oranges and if we're hungry, then we're like, okay, this is good for my health, I'm hungry, I want it, I need it, so I'm going to acquire it. And this process of taking something that we see, labeling it, and building ideas, this leads to craving, aversion, or feelings of neutrality. And this is what develops into our motivation towards acquiring what we want and avoiding what we don't want. And on one very important level, we need all of these labels, all of these concepts. Like we all arrived here today, right? We all made our way into this room around 8 o'clock because we knew this symposium started today, or you found the Zoom link so that you could join us online. So we need all of that to be able to engage with each other, and we need that agreement on these conventions and concepts. Otherwise, we just wouldn't actually get anywhere. And we agree that something like this is labeled a phone. And we use that to communicate and understand each other. So this is really essential. But the danger is if we leave it there. And Krishnamurti, in this really beautiful quote, he said, the day you teach the child the name of the bird, the child will never see that bird again. So what this points to is, like all of us as well, when we first see something, we experience it fully. Its colors, the movement, its sound, its song, there's no filter. But then we start to habitually put things together, we lump things together so that we're not seeing things as they are. We're not seeing its dependency on other things. And this gives rise to this fundamental ignorance of thinking that there is a self and others that leads to this craving and grasping of what we want and what we want to avoid. So at the core of this teaching on interdependence, the Buddha shows us that there isn't anything there. He helps us to see through what isn't there and to see what is actually there. And there's a story about Shariputra, who was one of his first disciples. When he actually, before he met the Buddha, he actually met one of the Buddha's first disciples, and his name was Asvajit. And Shariputra was really struck by Asvajit's serenity and wanted to know more about who his teacher was, what his teaching was. And Asvajit wasn't confident to say what it was. So Shariputra just said, please just tell me in essence what it is. And Ashwajit said, well, my Buddha is my teacher, and the essence of his teaching is interdependence. And he gave a short teaching on that, just a short few lines. And it said that upon hearing this short teaching, Shariputra gained the first stage of the path, the Buddhist path. So we might ask, what is it that Shariputra understood? And Nagarjuna, on also this teaching of interdependence, he essentially summarizes interdependence for humans as destructive emotions that lead to karma, and karma leads to suffering or dissatisfaction. And these destructive emotions, there are actually 3. So that's ignorance, craving, and grasping. And the key here is actually to really be able to see, to start to see the gap between craving and grasping, so that actually we can cut the chain so that we don't actually start to perpetuate karma. So everything we see, everything that appears is arising dependently on causes, but we clump everything together, such as human being, chair, microphone, and once there's an I, there's an other, and we start to crave what we want and have aversion towards what we don't want. And Buddhism presents multiple methods and tools to help us find the space to become more intimately aware of our process of perception, so that we can understand that in that first moment of seeing, there's just this fresh, naked seeing, but then we start to label everything, and we start to have thoughts, and these ideas lead to attachment, aversion, and so on, that perpetuates our cycle of existence. So this teaching on interdependence is showing us how to cut through this. And just a point here, when the Buddha attained enlightenment under the Bodhi tree, he actually wandered around for several weeks, really wondering how he could share what he realized, because he actually knew it was not so easy for it to be understood or grasped. But what Shariputra understood and realized in hearing that short teaching is that because of ignorance, we don't see what is there. And recognizing this, Shariputra saw that there was no real self, no other, no solid, truly existing objects out there, but instead everything is dependently arising upon other causes, like a continual flow. And if we experience everything like that, if we recognize appearances as dreamlike, then we would be like a lucid dreamer in a dream. We wouldn't actually want to, there'd be no need for us to crave or want anything, right? If we know it's not real. So all of this isn't abstract philosophy. We can notice in our own life when we're caught in me or mine, or worry about our reputation, defending our views, or feeling offended. There's that dissatisfaction. But when we can forget about ourselves, when we're absorbed in something that we enjoy, like music, connection, there's a flow of life and ease. And we can feel there's even a solid self in AI, even though we know there isn't one, right? But what if we're doing the same thing with ourselves? It's not that we don't know, it's not that we don't exist, but this solid, separate sense of an I that we take as real is also an appearance arising from these conditions and patterns and processes. So here's an invitation just to maybe between now and the afternoon session, you can maybe pay attention to whether you feel this sense of an I. When is it strong? When does it soften or disappear? What's actually there when you look? So this afternoon, some of us will continue to explore directly through contemplation and investigate our perceptions and this sense of self, not to adopt a new belief, but to look at our own experience and see what's actually there. Thank you.